Environment and ecology. From environment and ecology, we have approximate 20 to 25 questions every year. So the weightage of this subject is 20 to 25 question. The minimum question till now we have is in 2016 examination we have only 10 questions. And from 2030 to 2020 approximate we have 20 to 23 questions every year comes from environment and ecology. So what we will study in environment and ecology are the environment and ecology, what is environment and what is ecology, what is biodiversity, what are the environmental issues, climate change and sustainable developments. These are the topics which we will cover in environment and ecology. Now, our universe is made up of galaxies. Universe is made up of galaxies, and galaxy is made up of solar systems. And solar system we have Earth. In Earth we have biospheres, living part of Earth. In biosphere we have biomes. Biomes are consist of the different ecosystems. In ecosystem we have different communities. And in communities we have different populations. And populations consist of organisms. Organism is made up of organs. Organs are made up of tissues, which comprise the cells, protoplasm, which in turn have molecules, and molecules are made up of atoms. This is the whole breakdown of universe. So the journey of universe to atom follows this pattern. Now, universe, galaxies, solar system and Earth, these are the part of our geography syllabus. These we will cover in geography. Biosphere, biomes, ecosystem, communities, population and organism. These are part of our environmental and ecology syllabus. Organisms, organs, tissues, cell, protoplasm, molecules and atom. These all topics are part of science and technology. So in our environment, we focus on biospheres, biomes, ecosystem, communities, population and organisms. Now, we know that our Earth is a diverse planet. In Earth, we have major four spheres or the four systems. What are these four systems? First we have is lithosphere. Second we have is of atmosphere. Third we have is hydrosphere. And fourth is biosphere. Biosphere is a part of lithosphere, atmosphere and the hydrosphere. So these four systems are interconnected and influence each other. Together this system makes possible life on the earth. Together they Because of this togetherness, the life on earth exists. Now, change in one system, if there is anything change in lithosphere, it will directly affect the atmosphere, hydrosphere and biosphere too. So the change in one system affect each other and the earth as a whole. So first sphere we have is lithosphere. What is lithosphere? Lithosphere, it is the solid outer part of the earth. It is solid outer part of earth. Lithosphere is made up of rocks, sediments, soil. These all type of the landform, different type of the landforms, and the process that shapes the earth is the part of lithosphere. The second sphere we have is of atmosphere. So what is an atmosphere? It is the envelope of the gas surrounding the earth. It is envelope of gas which surrounds the earth. It includes meteorological features such as weather, climatic conditions, clouds. These are part of atmosphere. Third sphere we have is hydrosphere. What is hydrosphere and what consists of this hydrosphere? So hydrosphere includes water on or near the earth's surface. Hydro means water. So hydrosphere is that part of the earth which includes water on or near the earth. Near the earth's surface. Hydrosphere includes oceans, rivers, lakes, ponds and groundwater. We also have a frozen form of water which is known as cryosphere. Cryosphere is the frozen water part. Is frozen water part. So cryosphere includes? It includes the snow and the ice on land. Snow or the ice on land. Ice caps. We have glaciers, permafrost regions and the sea ice. These all are part of cryosphere, which in turn are part of hydrosphere. So these are the three different parts of the earth which together form the biosphere. We have hydrosphere. The sun provides us the rays. We have atmosphere. The second part we have is hydrosphere. And the third we have is lithosphere. Now what is biosphere? So biosphere is that part of the earth which supports the life. Which part supports the life? Where all the living matters exist. So biosphere is a part of, it includes all three. It is that part of the earth where the life exists. This is biosphere. So what biosphere is? So biosphere is the part of the earth that supports life. Is known as biosphere. Bio means living. Bio means life. And the Latin word sphere means circuit or the range. Circuit or the range of the action. So the biosphere includes all the living matters such as plants, animals, and microorganisms. And exist in the geosphere and the hydrosphere. So the biosphere includes all the living matters such as plants, animals, microorganisms, and exist in the geosphere. Geosphere is nothing but lithosphere. Next topic we have is, so here we can conclude biosphere is the life existing part. So biosphere is atmosphere plus hydrosphere plus lithosphere. So biosphere is the life existence needed living organism plus the environment in which they stay. So biosphere have two components. First one is the biotic part and the second one is the abiotic part. Biospheres is where life exists. But the life, for the existence of life, what it needed? It needed living organisms and the environment to stay. So biosphere have two components. One is the biotic part and the second one is the abiotic part. Biotic part means the life existing part and the abiotic part is non-living part. Biotic means living components and abiotic means non-living components. Biotic parts, example of this biotic can be on the terrestrial, that is on the land, or it can be on the aquatic. It can be terrestrial or it can be aquatic. Terrestrial biotic parts, terrestrial means land. What are these? These are the plants, animals, and microorganisms. What are the aquatic bio parts? It consists plants. We also have plants in water, animals, we have nutrients, and we have other microorganisms. What abiotic part consists? It consists some physical components, inorganic components, and the organic substances. So for this physical environment, physical components are temperature, humidity, and salinity, light, These are the some physical components and they are abiotic form, or they can have organic substances like protein, carbohydrate. It can also have some inorganic compounds or inorganic substances. Which are they? They are water, carbon dioxide, etc. Organic substances are which are based on the carbon molecules. Next topic we have. Now we have a question. There is continuous interaction between the living and the non-living things in a biosphere. In a biosphere, there is a continuous interaction between living and non-living. Is it true or false? For the existence of the biosphere, we need some life form exist there, and for the existence of the life forms, there are some abiotic features or the non-living features like the physical components, organic substances, inorganic substances, and their continuous interaction will perform a function for the existence of the biosphere. So in biosphere there is a continuous interaction of the living and the non-living organisms. This statement is correct. Next topic we have. What are the environment, ecosystem and ecology? First we have is what is environment. So what is an environment? Everything that surrounds and affects a living organism is known as environment. Environment is everything that surrounds or affect an organism is known as environment. Environment includes both biotic and abiotic components. Biotic and abiotic components. The environment provides living organism all the necessities to survive. Which necessities it provide? It provide food to eat, water to drink, and air to breathe. And also provide the shelter to live. Thus, what is an environment? It is the life support system. Environment is life support system. What are the types of environment? Environment can be of two types. First, it is natural environment. Natural environment, it includes all the biotic and the abiotic features that exist naturally. Natural environment means all biotic and abiotic features which exist naturally. Example, if we take an example of fish, we have a fish in the pond. So there are some different abiotic factors. What are abiotic factors here? Are light, temperature, nutrients, These are the abiotic features, and there are also some biotic features. What are they? Other organisms like insects, bacteria, and aquatic vegetation we have. So these biotic and abiotic factors which are existing naturally and forming an environment is known as natural environment. And the second type of environment we have is the human made. Human made or the man made. That is human environment or the man made environment. What is human made? It is made by the humans or the created by the human beings. So it is the environment which is created by humans. Humans interact with the natural environment and modify it with according to their needs. How they will create the human environment? They will modify the environment according to their needs. They will modify the natural occurred environment according to their needs. Example, we have cities, we have towns, and we have industries. These are example of human environment or the human made or the man made environment. So we have two type of environments. It can be natural environment or it can be human made environment. Natural environment both include biotic and abiotic factors which exist naturally. And in case of the human environment, it is created by the humans. Human will modify the natural existing environment according to their needs. Next topic we have is what is an ecology. Environment is one. What is ecology? So the word ecology, it is the study which defines a relationship. It is the study. Ecology is the study of the interrelation or the interactions of these different organisms with each other and with their environment. How these organisms will interact with each other and with their environment. This study is known as ecology. So ecology is the study of the interaction of the different organisms with each other and with their environment. So the term ecology is coined by the Ernest Haeckel in 1866. This term is coined by Ernest Haeckel. So ecology is the study of how these living organisms interact amongst themselves and with the abiotic factors. In ecology, we have some hierarchy. How this? So ecology is concerned with the understanding of the organizations of the earth, life of the earth. We have different level of the organizations in the ecology. What are these? Different level of organizations in ecology. How we have different level of organization in ecology? Since ecology is the study of the relationship, now this relationship can be with the one organism, it can be with the population, it can be within the community, it can be within the ecosystem, within the biome, or it can be within the biosphere. So at first we have organisms. Suppose we have organisms. First, we can have only interaction with this organism and with their environment, or their population can interact. Third possibility is the community interaction. And the fourth possibility is the interaction with the within the ecosystem, or it can be the interaction in the biome, and the last, it can be an interaction in a biosphere. So in case of an organisms, this is the first level of organizations. It refers an individual organism. For example, a single tree or a single animal. At this level, ecologists study how these organisms interact with their environment. An example we have is single tree or a single animal. Second level we have is population. So the term population, it will denote the number of the same species that live in the place at the same time. It denotes the member of the same species, not of the different species. Same species that live in the same place. Same species live in same place and at the same time. Everywhere we will use the term population, it means the number of the same species living in the same place and at the same time. So at this level, what ecologists will study? They will study how the population of the organisms interact with each other. First we have only one plant or the one tree. Here we have 100 trees. How these 100 trees will interact with each other and with the environment, including their competition for the resources. The third hierarchical level in the ecology we have is community. What is the community in ecology? It refers all the different population of a living organism in the same geographical area. We have different populations of organisms in same geographical area. Now in this community, what will ecologists study? They will study how these different populations will interact with each other and their environment. Fourth level of hierarchy in the ecology we have is ecosystem. In ecosystem, it includes the living organisms. Ecosystem, we have biotic factors in an area and non-living aspects also. Ecosystem, we have biotic and abiotic factors of the environment. For example, if we have a single lake or a forest, at this level, what will ecologists study? They will study how the energy is flowing from one level to the another, or the one organism to the another, and how the nutrient cycle in an ecosystem follows. So in ecosystem, we have biotic and abiotic both factors, and how they will interact with each other, and how the flow of energy will, how there is an energy flow. Next level of the hierarchy we have is biome. What is an biome? So it is the largest geographical biotic unit. Largest geographical biotic unit. It includes a major community of the plants and animals with the similar life forms and the environmental condition. Example is tundra biomes, desert biome, taiga biomes. So in biomes, it is the largest geographical unit which comprises of the biotic organisms. Next level of the hierarchy we have is biosphere. It is the part of the earth with the living organism. At this level, what will ecologists study? Ecologists study the cycle of the carbon, how this carbon cycle flows, nitrogen cycle, and the other element. They also study how this cycle is influenced by the human activities. अब जो ये कार्बन साइकिल और नाइट्रोजन साइकिल how this the carbon cycles and the nitrogen cycle are influenced by the human activities. How human activities can influence the cycles? It is by the activities such as the fossil fuel burning and the deforestation. So in ecological hierarchies, we have organism where we have only single one organism, an element, and plant or an animal. In case of the population, we have same species but having the same place and the same time. Suppose we have the 100 plants on the same geographical unit at the same time. Third, we have is the community. In community, we have the different populations of a geographical area. Next, a community is a part of an ecosystem, and ecosystem is a part of biome, and biome is a part of biosphere. Next we have is, now let's take an example to understand this hierarchy. Suppose we have a pond. Now the living individual organism in the pond. Individual organisms which can be individual organism can be fish, can be frog, can be algae, or it can be bacteria. Now, so the population of the organisms in the pond, it will include the population of fish. There can be population of frogs. There can be population of algae and the population of bacteria. Next, after population, we have a community. So in the case of the communities of the organism in the pond, it will include the whole community of the fish, community of the frogs, community of the algae, and the community of the bacteria. Now, after community, we have ecosystem. So ecosystem of this pond, it will include pond itself, or the water in the pond, plants and the animals, that live in pond, and the non-living factors like we have sunlight, we have temperature and water quality. So these are the biotic parts and abiotic parts. So ecosystem of the pond consists of the pond itself, the water in the pond, plants and the animals, and abiotic components are the sunlight, temperature, and the water quality. Next we have, so the different level of the ecological hierarchy are nested within each other. अब जितने भी जो भी इकोलॉजिकल हायरार्की के जितने भी डिफरेंट लेवल होंगे वो एक दूसरे के अंदर एग्जिस्ट करते हैं. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, द पॉपुलेशन ऑफ द फिश इज नेस्टेड विद इन द कम्युनिटी ऑफ द फिश. अब जो पॉपुलेशन जो होगी फिश की, is a subpart of community of fish. Which is nested within the ecosystem of the pond. अब जो कम्युनिटी जो होगी फिश की, विच इज अ पार्ट ऑफ पॉन्ड, it means the different level of ecological hierarchies all are interconnected. All these 6 hierarchies are interconnected. If they all are interconnected, what it means? It means that is the change in one level. Change in one level, it will affect the change. If there is any change in one level, it will affect the other levels too. If all these systems are interconnected, then change in at any single stage will lead to change in the whole. So if the population of the fish are decreased, in any case, if the population of fish are decreased, it could affect the community of the fish. Which will, in turn, it will also affect the ecosystem of pond. So now we can differentiate between the environment, ecology and ecosystem. What is environment, ecology and ecosystem? Suppose we have a building. This whole building works as an environment. In building, we have some apartments. Suppose these 6 apartments we have. In these apartments, some people are living of different community. They can be, suppose A, B, C are different type of the community people living in them. So the building, it consists of, we have living organisms plus we have non-living. So it works as an environment, that is everything that surrounds us. In building, we have some apartments. These apartments work as an ecosystem. Ecosystem are the smaller self-contained unit within the environment. Are the small units are self-contained in environment. And the people living inside these apartments, that is how the relationship between these living and the non-livings, or the relation between the living and the living, are studied by ecology. So ecology is the study of the interaction between the organisms and their surrounding in an ecosystem or an environment. So in simplest, we can say that it is the study of the ecosystems. Now what is an environment? It denotes the surroundings where an organism lives. It comprises of the physical components environment can be micro and can be macro. Now what are the ecosystems? Ecosystem is an ecological unit which includes all the living organisms in a particular area and all the abiotic feature of that local environment. It is a functional unit of the environment and a group of ecosystem form an environment. So here we have a 6 ecosystem, combinedly they form an environment. It can be terrestrial or it can be aquatic. So ecology will study the relationship between living and non-living and living and living. Next we have is in ecosystem is a functional unit of environment. And where all the living organisms interact with themselves and the abiotic factors. Interaction is between themselves plus they with the abiotic factors. So in ecosystem, living, that is the biotic and the abiotic factors, interact through the two methods. How these will interact with each other? They will interact through the two methods. This interaction, it can be through the energy flow or it can be nutrient cycling. या तो एक लेवल से दूसरे लेवल पे एनर्जी फ्लो हो रही है और इट कैन बी थ्रू द न्यूट्रिएंट साइक्लिंग. Now let's understand the topic of ecosystem. For the existence of an ecosystem, there can be certain characteristics of an ecosystems. So what are the characteristics of an ecosystem to sustain? It can have the high species diversities. Now there can be a wide range of the species including plants, animals, fungi, bacteria present in the ecosystem. There can be there is an interdependence. Each organism plays a different role in an ecosystem and all the living organisms are interdependent on one another. जो भी जितने भी living organisms होंगे वो एक दूसरे के ऊपर depend होंगे and on the abiotic factors also for their survivals. So for being the survivals, all organisms are dependent upon each other and with their environment too. And there is a flow of energy. Now we know that the sun is the primary source of the energy of an ecosystem. So the energy is passed through one organism to the another organism. How this energy is passed? It can be passed through the food chain or the food web. And the fourth factor characteristic for an ecosystem is the nutrient cycling. So the cycling of the nutrients such as the carbon, nitrogen, phosphorus between the living and the non-living component in an ecosystem. This process is very crucial. Why it is crucial? Because for the growth and the survival of the plants and the other organisms in an ecosystem, there is a nutrient cycling. If there is no nutrient cycling, then there is no growth and there is a disturbance in the survival of the plants and the other organisms in an ecosystem. It can disrupt the whole ecosystem. Fifth characteristic for an ecosystem is the succession. Succession means the ecosystem are constantly changing over the time, and with the new species colonizing the area which were previously inhabited by the other, and or it can be because of the dying out of these, and these are replaced by the new species. So succession is the most important part of an ecosystem. What are the components of an ecosystem? Components of ecosystem. In an ecosystem, we have both biotic and the abiotic components. What are these biotic and what are these abiotic components? So ecosystem have two components. First is the biotic and the second is the abiotic component. What is the difference between them? Abiotic components are the non-living components. And biotic components are the living components. Abiotic components are of three categories. First is the physical features, physical factors. Second is the inorganic substances. And the third is the organic substances or the organic compounds. In case of biotics, we have the living components such as the plants, animals and the microorganisms. They are of three types: producers, consumers and the decomposers. First there is producer, second we have is consumer, and the third we have is decomposer. What are the producers? We know that the green plants by the process of photosynthesis prepare their own food. So producers are the plants, green plants. Some will consume these plants. They can be animals. And there are some decomposers which will decompose these consumers after the dying out, are microorganisms. So what are the decomposers? These are the microorganisms like earthworms, millipedes, vultures, earthworms, millipedes, now in case of the abiotic, that is the non-living factors, we have first is the physical factors. Physical factors like sunlight, we have humidity, we have rainfall, we have pressure, we have temperature. They sustain and limit the growth of organisms in an ecosystem. The second abiotic component is the inorganic substances. Inorganic substances like carbon dioxide, we have nitrogen, we have sulfur, water, rock, soil, oxygen and other minerals. Organic compounds, these include carbohydrates, proteins, lipids and the humic substances. They are carbohydrates, proteins, lipids and humic substances. These are the components of an ecosystem. First, we have is biotic component. Biotic components are the living components which includes plants, animal, microorganisms. In biotics, they are grouped as the three major groups. First is the producer. Producers are also known as autotrophs. Auto means self, trophs means making their food. Autotrophs are those who made their food. So the plants that are capable of the photosynthesis are known as the producers or the autotrophs. Producers include the microorganisms that are capable of the chemosynthesis also. We have plants. Plants will prepare their food by the photosynthesis, and in case of the bacteria near the deep ocean vents, bacteria in ocean vents, since sunlight cannot be reached in the deep oceans, so the bacteria will prepare their food by the chemosynthesis process. In chemosynthesis process, they will convert the inorganic compounds like sulfides, methane. They will convert them into organic food. The second we have is consumers. What are consumers? Consumers are also known as heterotrophs. The living organisms that consumed food synthesized by the autotrophs are known as consumers. They will consume the food which is prepared by the autotrophs. Are known as consumer or the heterotrophs. Now consumer can be of three types. First is the herbivores. Herbivores are the living organism that feed directly on the plant. Are known as herbivores. Example of these animals who directly eat the plants are cow, deer, rabbit are the example of the herbivores. Second type of consumers are the carnivores. Carnivores are the animals which eat other animals. Are known as carnivores. Example of these animals who eat the other animals are lion, dog are the example of carnivores. Third type of the consumers are the omnivores. What are omnivores? Omnivores are the organisms which feed upon both plants and the animals. Example humans. जो भी organisms directly depend है plants पे, who will directly consume the plants, are known as the herbivores. Example of these are cow, rabbit, एंड द एनिमल्स जो डिपेंड है फॉर फीडिंग on the other animals, who will eat the other animals, are known as carnivores. And there are some organisms like the humans which will depend upon both plants and the animals. Are the three type of consumers. Third component of the biotic factors is the decomposers. What are decomposers? So decomposers are also known as saprotrophs. Decomposers are also known as saprotrophs. They will break down the organic matter. So these are the bacteria, fungi, or the invertebrates such as the earthworms and the millipedes that feed on the dead decomposed. Feed on dead decomposed and dead organic matter. Dead organic matter of plants and animals. So decomposers will break down the organic matter. So they recycle the nutrient back into the soil and making them available for the organisms to use. Decomposers, they will recycle the nutrients. Those decomposers who will recycle the nutrient and make available for the reuse are known as detrivores. Detrivores or the detritus feeder. So decomposers are of two types: saprotrophs and the detrivores. How we will differentiate both of them? Saprotrophs will consume the dead or the decaying matter. Dead or the decaying. This is the process of decomposition, external. If the decaying of the organic matter is external, this process is known as these decomposers are known as the saprotrophs decomposers. That is, the organisms secretes the enzyme into organism will secrete enzymes to break down into the materials. Example of this, we have bacteria, we have fungi, that is the mold on bread or chapati. Bread का खराब होना, it means the fungi or the mold on the bread. And in case of the detrivores decomposers, this is the process of decomposition which is internal. In case of saprotrophs, the organisms will excrete the enzyme so that the material can be break down. But in case of the detrivores, it is an internal process. That is, first it is by the ingestion of the dead material. खाकर ब्रेक डाउन करना is known as the detrivores, and the mold on the bread, that is because of the excretion of the enzymes, is known as the saprotrophs decomposers. Example of the detrivores are the earthworms, millipedes, vultures, ants, scavengers. they all will eat the dead material. But the saprotrophs, they will excrete on the dead material, so that the material is dead. These are the different type of the biotic components of an ecosystem. And in case of the biotic, we have three factors: physical, inorganic and organic. Now we have a concept is of the carrying capacity and the limiting factor. What is carrying capacity? And limiting factor. So, carrying capacity, it refers to the maximum number of the individual of a particular species that an ecosystem can support over a sustainable period of time. That is, how much number of an individual of a particular species an ecosystem can support till a period of time. How it is determined? That is the maximum number of species. It is determined by the number of the factors such as the availability of the resources. It will depend upon the availability of the resources, how till how many time period the resources are available. Availability of the resources. Which resources? Food, water, and environmental factors such as climate, etc. These factors are known as the limiting factors. अब जो ये factors हैं जिन पे डिपेंड करता है रिसोर्सेज की अवेलेबिलिटी इज नोन एज द लिमिटिंग फैक्टर्स. दे रेस्ट्रिक्ट द ग्रोथ distribution of the particular species within an ecosystem. So in an ecosystem, the population of species will increase until it reaches the carrying capacity. Population is increased till it reaches carrying capacity. Or carrying capacity is depend upon the limiting factors. Then the population remains relatively small if the population increase beyond the carrying capacity. It is also a possibility that the population can increase beyond the carrying capacity. It means the resources will start depleting and the ecosystem will become unstable. If the population will increase beyond the carrying capacity, then what will happen? Ecosystem will become unstable. So the ecosystem will become unsuitable for the species to survive in. Now let's take an example. We have a forest ecosystem. In forest ecosystem, the carrying capacity of a population of deer. We have carrying capacity of deer. We have 100. And it is determined by the availability of the food such as the grass and the shrubs. Here the limiting factors are grass and shrubs. If the population of the deers are increased beyond the carrying capacity, now if the population of these deers are 200 and the availability of the resources we have grass and the shrubs is available only for the 100 deers, so what will happen? The food resources will deplete and will lead to starvation. Food resources will deplete and it will lead to starvation and decline in the population of the deer. Population of deer will start decreasing So in this case, food availability is the limiting factor that restricts the growth of their population. So if the population is increased beyond the carrying capacity, it will become unstable and the ecosystem may fall. In an ecosystem, there are some functions to perform. Which are these functions? Functions to perform. First, the interaction between the biotic and the abiotic component in an ecosystem result in the different functions which are essential for the survival and the well-being of the ecosystem as a whole. What are these functions is performed by the ecosystem? These are the first one is the energy flow. Without the flowing of the energy, the ecosystem will not suitable for the sustainable of the life, because when the energy is not transferred from the one organism to the another, the organisms will start declining. The second function to perform of an ecosystem is the nutrient cycling. The second function to perform is the nutrient cycling. Third function to perform is the ecological succession. Or an ecosystem development. These are the some functions which are performed by every ecosystem to sustain the life. In case of the energy flow, we have the different topic levels and we will study the interaction between these topic levels. The second one is we have is the nutrient cycling. In case of the nutrient cycling, these are the cycles by which the chemical elements and the compounds move through some biotic and the abiotic components of the earth ecosystem. The constant interaction between the biotic and the abiotic components of the biosphere make it dynamic but is stable. To become a stable ecosystem, the nutrient cycle must flow. From the sun, plants will prepare their food by the process of photosynthesis. Now let's suppose the 100 units are coming from the sun in the form of the solar radiations. Is these 100 units are available for the plants? No. Only 2 to 3% is used by the plants, and it is known as the photosynthetically active radiation. This is known as photosynthesis active radiation. That is PER. So it refers to the spectral range of the solar radiation that photosynthetic organisms can use for the process of photosynthesis. Can be used for the process of photosynthesis. Plants only capture 2 to 10% of the photosynthetic active radiations, and this small amount, only this 2 to 10% small amount of energy is sustain the entire living world. Entire living world. So photosynthetic active radiation is the part of the sunlight that is used in the process of the photosynthesis. Plant use only 1 to 3% of the photosynthetic sun's radiations, and it is highly inefficient. Why it is highly inefficient? Because out of the 100 units, only 1 to 3% is used. 97 to 99% of the photosynthetic active radiation are not in used. Next we have is energy flow. That is how the energy is flowing from one topic level to the another topic level. So energy flow or the flow or the movement of the energy through a series of an organism is known as energy flow. That is movement of energy. Now it is unidirectional, which means it is always flow from producer to the higher level. Means we have plant. Plants are consumed by rabbit. Rabbit is eaten by snake, and snake is eaten by eagle. This energy flow is unidirectional in nature. That is, reverse of this is not possible. Energy cannot be transferred from eagle to plants. This is not possible. So it means it is an unidirectional. It will flow from the producer to the higher level. Energy flow in an ecosystem is governed by the law of thermodynamics, which describe the fundamental principle of the energy transfer and transformation. In energy flow, we have not only the transfer of the energy, but transformation is also. That is energy transfer and transformation. We have two laws to understand the flow of energy in an ecosystem. First is the first law of the thermodynamics states that energy cannot be created nor be destroyed. Energy cannot be created nor be destroyed. It means we cannot create more energy or we cannot destroy the energy. It can only transform from one to another. There is only transformation. Transfer one to another. So the total amount of the energy in an ecosystem will remain constant. It will implies the total energy in an ecosystem is constant. बाहर से ना ही एनर्जी ऐड कर सकते हैं और ना ही एनर्जी को बीच में एक्सट्रैक्ट कर सकते हैं. However, it gets converted from one to another as it flows through the ecosystem. जैसे ही एनर्जी फ्लो होगी इकोसिस्टम में फर्स्ट टू सेकंड लेवल, it is transformation. It is not created or not destroyed. The second law states that according to the second law of the thermodynamics, it states that any energy transfer or the transformation, some energy will always lost as heat energy. It means some amount of energy is always lost as heat energy. It means if suppose plants have 100 units of energy, plant is eaten up by the rabbits. Now the energy transferred from the plants to the rabbit is not 100. Out of them, some will be lost as the heat energy. So the energy flow in an ecosystem is not 100% efficient. Energy flow is 100% efficient is not efficient, because some amount of the energy is lost in form of heat. When the energy get transferred from the one organism to the another, when the energy is transferred, some of the energy is lost as the heat energy during the metabolic processes. The lost energy is during the metabolic processes. And to understand the food chain and the food web, first we have to know the what is the trophic level. What is a trophic level? Each nutrient level in the energy flow is known as the trophic level. Suppose from the sun we have the photosynthetic active radiations. They are used by the plants. Plant is eaten up by rabbit. Rabbit is eaten up by snake. Now plants are the producers. Snakes, rabbit, eagle are consumer. First, with the help of the sun's photosynthetic active radiations, plant will prepare their food. So it is the first level, first trophic level. It is first trophic level. Some energy will be lost. According to the second law of the thermodynamics, some amount of the energy is always lost as heat energy. Now, plants are eaten up by the rabbits. So there is also lost energy lost. At every trophic level, some amount of energy is lost. This is the second trophic level. Rabbits are eaten up by the snakes. This is our third trophic level. And snake is eaten up by eagle. It's our fourth trophic level. We have plants are the producers. Rabbit is primary consumer. Snake is secondary consumer. And eagle is our tertiary consumer. Plant. Rabbit is eating the plants, that is, it is herbivore. Which eats plants. Snake is eating the rabbit. Animals eating, it means it is carnivores. And eagle is eating the snake. It is our top level carnivore. So the trophic level interactions are feeding relationship between the different organisms in an ecosystem. In an ecosystem, organisms are placed in different trophic levels based on their feeding habits and the role they play in an energy transfer. They are arranged according to the transfer of the energy and their role. Organisms at each trophic level depend on those at the lower trophic level for their energy. Now, rabbit is totally dependent upon the plant for the energy. The amount of the energy is always decreased at the successive trophic levels. From the first to the second trophic level, some amount of energy is lost as the heat energy. From the second to the third, again some amount of energy get lost, and on the third trophic level, some amount of energy again lost. So when an organism dies, it is converted to the detritus or the dead biomass that serves as an energy source for the decomposers. For decomposers, how from where decomposers get their energy? The source of energy for decomposers. From where they get energy? They will get energy from the dead biomass. So the trophic level interaction can be studied through the food chain, food web and ecological pyramids. First we have is food chain. Food chain defines who eats whom. That is the transfer of the, we have the transfer of the energy and transform of the energy from the one trophic level to the another trophic level. So food chain denotes the sequence of the transfer of the matter and the energy in the form of the food from organism to the organisms. From one organism to the another, transfer of the energy through which sequence defined, it is the food web. So it basically describes who eat whom. Now sun is the only source of the energy for all the ecosystem on the earth except the deep sea. Sun is source of energy. For all the ecosystems. But in case of deep sea vents, from where they will get the energy? They will get, since there is a lack of sunlight in the deep seas, so these organisms reside rely on the chemical deposits and the thermal fluids as their source of energy. So they will derive their energy from the chemosynthesis. How they will derive their energy? They will convert the inorganic compound from the vent into the organic food. We have two types of the food chain. Types of food chain. First we have is grazing food chain. Second we have is detritus food chain. Detritus food chain. How they are different from one another? So on the basis of the source of the energy, there are two types of the food chain, grazing and the detritus. Grazing food chain is found both in the terrestrial and the aquatic ecosystem. Terrestrial plus aquatic. The food chain starts from the living green plants, goes to the grazing, herbivores and onto the carnivores. Plants to herbivores, herbivores to the carnivores. In aquatic ecosystem, the phytoplanktons acts as the primary producers. We have phytoplanktons. They are found in the photic zone till the sunlight rays reach. Phytoplankton as the primary producers. They are eaten up by the zooplanktons, and zooplanktons are further eaten up by fish. We have terrestrial aquatic, we have terrestrial food chain and we have aquatic food chain. And detritus food chain, it is the food chain which depend on the dead organic matter. They depend on dead organic matter. Decomposers such as bacteria and the fungi will break down the dead matter and release the nutrient back into the ecosystem. They are less dependent on the solar energy. They are less dependent on solar energy. They are more dependent upon the organic materials. Suppose we have dead material which is broken down by the earthworms, and earthworms are eaten up by frogs, and frogs are eaten up by snake. So the primary source of energy will be from the dead organic matter. And in case of the grazing food chain, they are more dependent upon the solar energy, and it will always start from the autotroph as the primary producer. Autotrophs are always primary producers. Then we have herbivores as an intermediate and carnivores at the top or the end of the food chain. So in case of the grazing food chain, energy for the food chain comes from the solar energy. In case of the detritus food chain, the source of the energy is the organic matter. So the first tropic level is occupied by the green plants, and in case of the detritus food chain, the first tropic level is occupied by the decomposers. These are the difference between the grazing food chain and the detritus food chain. How this food chain will work? Plants are preparing their food by the photosynthetic active radiations. Only 1 to 3%. Then it is eaten up by rabbits. Rabbit is eaten up by snake. Snake is eaten by eagle. Now how many energy get transferred from one level to the another level? It is the 10% rule or the Lindman's rule. What it says is 10% rule or the Lindman's law. What it states? It states that only 10% of the energy is transferred from the one tropic level to another. It means 90% of the energy is lost as heat energy. It can be for the internal growth or it can be in the respiration process is used. So when plant have the 100 units, suppose plant have the 100 units of energy. So how much energy transfer to the rabbit? Only 10% of 100, that is the 10 units. 10% transfer. From rabbit, how many percentage of the energy get transferred to the snake? 10% of the 10, that is the 1%. Only 1 unit. And how much energy from the snake is get transferred to the eagle? That is 0.1 unit. This is the transfer of the energy. It will start since the process of the energy that is from the sun's photosynthetic active radiation, which are only 1 to 3%, that is highly inefficient. Since the process starts as highly inefficient and the end of the process is also highly inefficient, since there is only 10% of the energy is transferred from each tropic level. The loss of energy is seen from the one tropic level to the another tropic level. It means, what is state? It means we have the maximum How much maximum trophic levels we can have? If energy is getting 90% of energy is getting lost at every stage, it means the maximum trophic levels we can have is 5. How? Maximum trophic levels, it means we have because of the limited food chain. Limited food chain. Because of the transfer of the energy is highly inefficient. Next we have is food web. What is food web? So food web is, unlike the food chain, food web is a complex and multi-directional and interrelated. Is multi-directional. Suppose we have a food chain or the food web. Plants are eaten up by rabbit. Rabbit is eaten by snake. Snake is eaten by eagle. And plant can also be eaten up by another herbivores. They can eaten by tiger, or the rabbit can be eaten by fox. Fox is eaten by tiger, or the rabbit is eaten by deer, and deer can be eaten by tiger, and plants can also be eaten by tigers, by deer. So this is also a possibility. So when there is an only one direction flow of energy, it is only possible in the food chain. When there are the multi-directional, when we have a multi-directional or the interrelated flow of energy, it is possible in the food web. So food web is the very complex that consists of a number of the food chains. So food web, it means we have a number of food chains. This food chain do not exist in the isolation but interact with each other. One animal may be a member of the several different food chains. Here we have tiger. Tiger is a member of first food chain also, the second food chain also, and the third food chain is also. So there is a possibility one animals may be a member of the several different food chains. So at food web shows the complex and the interconnected network of a number of the food chains in an ecosystem. So we can differentiate between the food web and the food chain. If we have to differentiate between the food chain and the food web, we have in food chain there is an unidirectional flow of energy, that is the linear flow of energy. But in case of food chain, there is an interconnected food chain. They are interconnected food chains. Second difference is there is a single unit. It is a single unit. But in case of food chain, it consists of several food chains. Third difference is in case of the food chain, we have 4 to 6 trophic levels. But in case of food web, it can have many number of the trophic levels. In food chain we have a limited number of trophic levels, but in case of the food web, we have many number of trophic levels. Fourth difference, since there is a unidirectional flow of the energy in case of the food chain, so there is an increase in the instability of an ecosystem. Instability of an ecosystem. Why there is a instability in the ecosystem? Because in case of the food chain, rabbit is totally dependent on the plants and snake is dependent on the rabbit. If that number of the rabbit is decreased, it will deprecate the population of the snakes, and which also affect the population of the eagles. But in case of the food chain, if rabbit is not if the snake is not there, in case of the deer, it can eat the rabbit, but if the number of the population of the rabbit is decreased, then deer can eat the plants. That is, there is a possibility that one animal can depend on the another, so it will create stability in an ecosystem. Next, the whole food chain can be disturbed if there is a disturbance occur at the single trophic level. If there is a disturbance at the single trophic level, it will imply whole food chain get disrupted. But in case of the food web, if there is a single trophic level disturbed, it will not affect the food web, because there is an interconnected food chain. One animal can be a member of the another chain and it can depend upon the another chain. So in case of the food chain, higher trophic levels members can only feed on the single type of the organisms in their trophic level, but in case of the food web, higher trophic level members can feed on the several type of the organism in the lower trophic levels.